So the first time I'm pressed, and I bumped into Helen Thomas outside the White House, the most famous journalist in the world, dean of the Washington Press Corps. She's been there 60 years, front row seat, center, always had the first question to the president, always had the last question to the president. So I said to her,
any comments on Israel? We're asking everybody today. Any comments
Tell them
on
to
Israel?
get the hell out of Palestine.
Ooh.
I posted that video, went completely viral. I was on every television station in the world, every newspaper in the world.
She's the longest-serving member of the White House Press Corps, but now Helen Thomas is making headlines herself, and they're not favorable.
I received over 20,000 emails and death threats. My life really changed from that. My name is David Nesenoff. I'm the accidental journalist. I'm actually named after a woman, Devosya, my great-grandmother, who is buried in Babi Yar, a mass grave, Babi Yar. I have a very strong affinity to the Shoah, to the Holocaust, to anti-semitism, and to the progression of Judaism in the modern world today. People always ask what's my Jewish background. Sometimes they focus on the fact I was a conservative rabbi and then kind of all Chabad. The real story is it starts earlier. I was walking along one day and I met a Chabad rabbi and he said, "Do you like cake?" And I said, "I like cake." And now I went to 800 Chabad houses in the world. I wear many hats. And one of them is I'm an accidental journalist. After I left my last congregation, I was sitting around trying to figure out what to do with my life. I always joke and say, if you turn off Facebook for just a minute, you look in the screen and you see your face. So I was looking at myself, what should I do with my life? And I thought, let me help Eretz Yisrael. I'll do something to help Eretz Yisrael. I'll come up with a question. I'll ask people and about Israel, and they'll tell me about the falafel and masada and all these wonderful things, and I'm then going to make it go viral. Magical, and they'll help Israel. That was my idea. Meanwhile, my son was calling the White House and say he wanted to go there for Hanukkah and film the Hanukkah menorah lighting. And they called him back and they said, "Do you mean the Hanukkah menorah lighting? In 6 months from now? Or do you mean next week, Jewish Heritage Day in the White House?" And he said, "Jewish Heritage Day in the White House." And he gave us, they got us some press passes, and we went for Jewish Heritage Day as press. So the first time I'm press, I was there for 60 seconds as press, and I bumped into Helen Thomas outside the White House, the most famous journalist in the world, dean of the Washington Press Corps. She's been there 60 years, front row seat, center, always had the first question to the president, always had the last question to the president. Many presidents since Eisenhower. Figured I've been a journalist now for 60 seconds, and she's been there 60 years. I thought it was time we met. So I said to her, any comments on Israel? I was going to, my one question, I was going to, kickstart my whole career and help Israel. And she looked at the camera and she said,
Tell them to get the hell out of Palestine.
Tell them to get the hell out of Palestine. I said,
Ooh. Any better comments than that?
Shortly after I was on television, they said, "Rabbi Nesenoff, when you said, ooh, what were you thinking?" And I said, I was thinking, ooh. And I said to her, where should they go? And she said, home. And because I asked the next question, my life changed. I said, where is home?
They go home.
Where's the home?
Poland.
So the Jews,
Germany.
And she said, Germany and Poland. I posted that video, and it went completely viral. I was on every television station in the world, every newspaper in the world, everything. And I received over 20,000 emails and death threats. My life really changed from that. When the thing happened with Helen Thomas, it was a very scary time for me. Now, when I look back at the story, I could joke about it. I tell stories about it. In fact, when I speak about it, it's very humorous. But at the time, it was very scary because I didn't know the end of the story. Because the press is a terrible being. They tell their story. They're not telling history. They're telling their story. They didn't like that I took down their dean of the Washington Press Corps, their person. And they figured, okay, let's take him down. And they did everything from finding a Purim spiel I did 5 years earlier and make me look like a fool. They tried to say I was a racist. That's the one thing they always do. Of course, we know that. They want to cancel you out by saying you're a racist. And they went after me. And it was a very difficult time. And I had to fight it tooth and nail. Each time I was interviewed, people wanted to say and do to me. And I really became became like an expert on media in a sense, because I was in the center of the storm. And so when I see things go on now with the cancel culture and everything else, I really understand it. I see what's going on more than anybody else, because I was in the center of it at the time. Why was it such a big story? Is because the press report on a lot of things, but they certainly repress on their own. And they reported on their dean of the Washington, their main character. and they wanted to go after the person that took her down. And they would do anything and everything to make it bad for him. And that was me. I see now in the media, first thing you do is call someone a racist. First thing you do is try to make them look to be a fool. I remember speaking someplace, and afterwards someone came over to me and said, I never knew who you were. From the press, I thought you were some kind of, nut job or something, because of the way they talked about you. But, it's very coherent what you're saying to us and explaining to us. By the way, it really was the watershed moment of people were able to say before that, I'm just anti-Israel and not anti-Jewish. This was the moment that wall was broken down. Because she said, go back to Germany and Poland. She didn't say, go to Herzliya, go to Tel Aviv, go to the other side of Jerusalem. She didn't say that. This was river to the sea. Let's just go back to where the final solution took place. There's no anti-Zionist there. That's anti-Jewish. And since then, I think people have been more comfortable saying, you're anti-Zionist, you're anti-Jewish. You're anti-Israel, you're anti-Jewish. And we see it today. There's no, I'm anti-Israel, not anti-Jewish. No, it's clear. And I think it started at that moment. Frankly, if today she said that, nobody would care. Wouldn't even be a story. Interestingly enough, when it came time with the Helen Thomas story, I was, sitting in my son's bedroom afterwards the next day, trying to figure out what to do with all this hate mail and everything going on. And I see everybody in the entire press corps is contacting me, and I'm thinking, who am I? What do I do with this? I'm like, Hashem, God, what do I do with the entire press corps of the world? And then the phone rang, and it was Ari Fleischer, former President Bush's press secretary. And I'm like, okay, God, that'll do. and he spoke to him. He was very nice. He said, Yasher Koach, David, very nice job. He said, let me tell you, he said, you're going to be interviewed by everybody. He said to me, words of advice, you have to have a message. Make sure you have a message, because if you don't give a message over and over again, they will make up a message. So make sure you have a message. I said, Ari, what's my message? He said, David, you have to come up with your message. So my cousin comes home from school, and I tell him, Ari Fleischer called. And my son says, I know, I told him to call you. So I said, Ari Fleischer, the press secretary, said, we need to have a message. What's our message? I'm going to run every television station. And my son said, we should get someone for advice. We should find somebody and ask them for advice. I said, who? My son said, you're on the front page of everything, everywhere. You can call anybody today. They'll take your call. Who do you want to get advice from? I thought about it. It has to do with anti-Semitism, the Holocaust, Washington. I said one name, Elie Wiesel. Elie Wiesel, the foremost Nobel laureate of Holocaust books. He said, you want to talk to Elie Wiesel? I said, yeah. He said, okay. He walked out of the room. Seconds later, my son walks in. Here's Elie Wiesel. Get on the phone. He said, Yasher Koach, Rabbi Nesenoff. And so, yes. He said to me, there is evil in the world. What's evil in the world? He said to him, what's my message? What's my message? So Elie Wiesel says to me, I read about you in the paper this morning. My whole life, by the way, is going crazy because Elie Wiesel's reading about me while he's having a Danish coffee in the morning. He's reading about David Nesenoff. So he said, I read about you in the paper. He said, I read that you have a connection with Chabad. I was just starting to get involved with Chabad. So he said, why don't you find out what the Lubavitcher Rebbe would want you to say? Next morning, I go down to my Chabad house, Rabbi Chaim Grossbaum, Stony Brook. I now have an entourage. I always joke. A guy carrying my tallis bag, my tefillin. I'm walking in, wrap me up while I'm on the phone. I say to Rabbi Grossbaum, I say, Elie Wiesel said I should find out, what the Rebbe would want me to say on television. Okay, what's his message? What's the Rebbe's message to the world? I'm going to speak to the world. And one of the things I love about Chabad, he didn't just say, I don't know. He said, let's go find out. We get on the phone, Rabbi Avram Shem Tov, very involved with the White House. He knows the politics, he knows the Yiddishkeit, he knows the Rebbe, So I spoke to Rabbi Shem Tov, and he gave me a message of the Rebbe. And in my own words, I'll say it. If you have a friend and you don't see your friend for many years, is it still your friend? Yeah, okay. But if you don't see your friend for 50 years, is it still your friend? No, it's someone I used to know. He said, but if you have a child, you don't see your child for a year, 2 years, 5 years, of course it's still my child. If you don't see your child for 50 years, chas v'shalom, God forbid, is that still your child? Yes. The Rebbe's message is, we are not the friends of Israel. We are B'nai Yisrael. We are the children of Israel. And children are forever. Our relationship with God and with the land of Israel is forever, because that's a relationship with children, and we are B'nai Yisrael. I went across the whole United States, across every place, across every media, every outlet, and told them that we are the children of Israel. Yeah, the question always arises, why is there anti-Semitism, is the age-old question. And a lot of people say, and I go to conferences, and it's fine, people trying to come up with reasons, and they say it's, they're jealous of the Jews. Jews are affluent, or Jews have a great culture, or all these different reasons. And I was handed some information once after one of my speeches, and I was heading on a plane to go to Australia to speak. So I had a little time to read this. So it takes 3 days to get there. And I read about what the Rebbe says about anti-Semitism. And the Rebbe makes it very clear. He says anti-Semitism is because Jews brought morality into the world. There's a big party, no rules, and this guy shows up with the rule book. We don't like him. We want to have a world without rules. The Jew, everybody knows the Jew showed up with Torah. Everybody knows. And that's why when a Jew does do something wrong, they throw the book at him. Israel today, one Gaza civilian dies. Let's open the floodgates because the Jew did something wrong. And that's why the reaction is the way it is. When you step on somebody, you make yourself higher up. So let's step on the Jew so we can say, he's not Mr. Morality, I am. I can step on him. And that's where it comes from. And that's a message that really should be further understood, the essence of why there is anti-Semitism in the world. Some people are using the excuse of, I'm not against Jews, I'm just against Israel, we love Jews. It's really when Helen Thomas said to me, tell them to get the heck out of Israel and Palestine and go back to Poland and Germany, she wasn't being anti-Zionist, she was saying from the river to the sea. It wasn't just, go back to Herzliya or Tel Aviv or whatever. And I think what's happening today is people are being very bold about it. How do we respond to that? And how do I respond? I had to learn how do I respond to it when it happened. And I go to the Rebbe. I'm sorry, I'm a chassid. I go to the Rebbe. What would the Rebbe say? And the Rebbe wasn't for rallies. He wasn't for riots. That's what they do. And I think by us going ahead and having rallies across the street from their rallies and having our flag and their flag, and we're following them. The Jew shouldn't follow what these terrorist-like people do. The Rebbe says we have our own set of rules, the way we do things. Okay? The way to fight anti-Jewish is to do Jewish. Okay? We put on tefillin, we light Shabbos candles, we learn a little more. We go ahead and keep kosher, up our level of kashrut, of being kosher, up our level of this. That's how we do it. You might say, well, what will that do to the world? Everything. We've been around longer than all these other groups that have gone. Amorites, the Jebusites, they're gone. We're still here because we followed true Torah. That's what we have to do to fight this surge of anti-Semitism. People say Jewish pride, Jewish culture, Jewish feeling. Those are nice words, but they do not last more than a generation. I don't like the word Jewish pride because it's just a feeling. I give a silly example. I'll give it here also. That someone says, "Let's go bowling." Everybody in the room, all the cameramen, let's all go bowling. We can't just do that. We have to get the bowling alley. We got to get the silly shoes. We got to go get the lane. We have to have the physical acts to do to make that concept happen. Well, we can't just say Judaism. Okay, it's just a concept. We have to actually do mitzvot. Okay, to make that concept happen. Then I can be proud of it. I can be proud of the mitzvahs I'm doing. But being proud without the mitzvahs, what are you proud of? When a Jew puts on tefillin in London, in Florida, in Tel Aviv, okay, he is fighting the spiritual war. There's a physical war, and thank God there's a Tzahal, Israel has an army, thank God. Okay, we didn't have an army during the Holocaust. But we don't win always because of the physical war and the physical army. We don't win because King David had a slingshot. We win because King David wrote Tehillim, because he wrote the Psalms. We have a spiritual battle we have to fight. Those are our rules, and we should fight it by doing that. Thank God we don't have to, some of us don't have to put on olive green and go into Gaza. I feel for those soldiers that have to do that. But we have to get up in the morning and put tefillin on. Not kvetch over, it's early. We have to go ahead and do more mitzvahs. We should learn more. We should do more. That makes an effect on the world. And we should do it like a soldier. Calibrate it. Not do it, we'll light candles now or later. No, calibrate it like you calibrate a weapon. That's what we have to do to fight this surge of anti-Semitism. That's what we have to do. We have to fight that spiritual battle. And that spiritual battle we win every time. It may not seem that way. There's a wonderful book called Mashpia by Rabbi Velvel Greenglass, Oliver Shalom, from Montreal. And in it he says, the last words in the Torah, and it's a spoiler if you haven't read the last words in the Torah, you're going to hear it now. It's Le'enei Kol Yisrael, in the eyes of all of Israel. He says, why does it say all of this is in the eye? It ends by saying in the eyes of all of Israel? Of course in the eyes of all of Israel. Why put those words there? Why be superfluous? And he says because this story, this about Moshe and everything, it's in the eyes of Israel. In the eyes of God, he knows the rest of the story. God, very name was, is, and will be. God is living in a different spectrum than we can even understand. God already saw Techias Mesim, the dead coming alive. God has already seen Mashiach. God has seen those children that were killed and massacred sitting on the crown of glory on his head. God, in the eyes of Israel, we see October 7th, we see the Holocaust. We see this. This is what we're left with. But we should know that that's not the whole story. Okay? In the eyes of God, there is something beautiful and wonderful. And we have to do our job of going ahead and fighting the spiritual battle and do it exactingly as a soldier with our mitzvot.